Most people break, not because they are weak, not because they lack talent or intelligence or the raw material that builds something meaningful, but because at some point, in some moment that arrives without warning and hits harder than anything they were prepared for, life asks something of them that they do not know how to give, and they break. And then, and this is the part that determines everything, they stay broken. They carry it, quietly, building their life around the break instead of through it, adjusting their expectations, lowering their ceiling, making peace with a smaller version of themselves because the bigger version requires going back into the place where the break happened, and that place is the last place they want to go. Most people stay broken forever. This is the story of a man who refused. Not a man who never broke. He broke, more than once, in ways that would have finished most people permanently, in ways that the statistics would look at and say, there is no coming back from this. The numbers do not support it. The odds do not allow it. He refused the odds. And what he built on the other side of every break, what he became because of the breaking, not in spite of it, is the reason you are here today. Because somewhere in you, there is something that recognized his story the first time you heard it. Something that did not just feel inspired, something that felt seen. Something that said, if he could refuse to stay broken, maybe I can too. You can. But first, you have to understand something that most people get completely wrong about what it means to be unbreakable. Unbreakable does not mean you do not break. It never has. The people you look at and call strong, the ones who seem to move through difficulty with a composure that feels almost inhuman, they broke. Every single one of them. The difference is not that they were spared the breaking. The difference is what they decided in the moment after. In the moment after the break, there are exactly two choices. You can let the break define you. You can build your identity around what happened to you, around the wound, the loss, the failure, the thing that hit you harder than you knew anything could hit. You can make it the story you tell yourself about why the life you wanted is no longer available, why the person you were trying to become is no longer realistic, why smaller is now the only option. Most people make that choice, not consciously, not in a moment of clear decision, gradually, through a series of small accommodations to the pain that slowly, invisibly, add up to a life built around avoiding the thing that broke them. Or you can refuse. You can look at the break, really look, without softening it or minimizing it or pretending it did not hit as hard as it did. And you can decide, not that it did not happen, not that it did not hurt, but that it does not get the final word on who you become. That refusal, that quiet, fierce, non-negotiable refusal to let the worst thing that happened to you become the ceiling of your life, that is the entire story. Everything else is just what follows from it. David Goggins grew up in a house where breaking was not a possibility. It was a guarantee. A father who ruled through violence. A child working night shifts at a roller rink because fear made refusal impossible. A boy who learned before he was old enough to understand what he was learning, that the world was not safe, that the people meant to protect you could be the source of the greatest danger, that survival was not guaranteed, and comfort was not coming, and the only question was how much you could take before you fell apart. He took a lot. And he fell apart anyway. By the time he was a young man, the falling apart was not visible from the outside. It looked like a life, a job, days that began and ended without crisis. But underneath it, in the place where the truth lives before it makes its way to the surface, he was broken in ways that most people never fully reckon with. The learning disability that made school feel like a daily humiliation. The stutter that turned every conversation into a potential source of shame. The weight that had climbed to nearly 300 pounds on a body that had stopped being a source of pride and become something to be managed and hidden. The job spraying cockroaches in restaurants for less than $1,000 a month, not because it was where he wanted to be, but because wanting something different felt like a luxury that the broken version of himself did not deserve. That is what staying broken looks like. Not dramatic, not visible, just the life that keeps getting smaller and smaller until the distance between where you are and where you know you could be is so vast that looking at it becomes too painful to do honestly. And then, one night, an ordinary night, the kind that is not supposed to change anything, he sat down in front of a television with a chocolate shake and watched other men suffer through Hell Week. 6 days without sleep, constant cold, constant pain, a training program designed to find the place where a man breaks and press on it until he does. And something happened in David Goggins that he has never been fully able to explain and has never stopped trying to. He recognized something, not in the suffering, in the refusal, in the way those men kept going past the point where going made any reasonable sense, in the way they chose over and over again, in the dark and the cold and the exhaustion, to refuse to stay broken. He looked at himself in the reflection of that screen, 297 pounds, chocolate shake in hand, a life that had been getting smaller for years, and he made a decision. Not to feel better about where he was, not to find peace with it, to end it. The weak version, the broken version, the version that had been making accommodations to the pain for so long that the accommodations had become the life. That version was finished. What followed was not a movie. It was not a montage of triumphant moments set to music. It was brutal and unglamorous and deeply, genuinely hard in a way that no amount of telling can fully capture. He had 3 months to lose 106 pounds to qualify for Navy SEAL training. 3 months on a body that had not been trained, in a life that had not prioritized physical discipline, with a timeline that most doctors would look at and call impossible. He ran anyway. Not well, not without pain, not on a body that was ready for it. He ran on a body that was protesting every step, on joints that were not designed for that weight at that pace, through weather and fatigue and every signal his body and mind could manufacture to tell him that this was not a good idea. He did not need it to be a good idea. He needed it to be the decision, and the decision had already been made. 106 pounds, 3 months. He qualified. And then buds broke him again. Not once, twice. Medical rollbacks, pneumonia during Hell Week, a body that was not just struggling, that was systematically failing under the weight of what he was asking of it. Most people would have read those rollbacks as the answer, as the universe's way of saying, this is not your path. You tried. You tried harder than most people ever will. It is okay to stop. He went back a 3rd time. 3 Hell Weeks in a single year, something so rare that it exists almost nowhere in the history of buds. 3 times back into the place that had broken him before. Not because it had stopped being hard, because he had decided that hard was not a reason. He graduated with Class 235. He earned the Trident. But here is what I need you to understand about that moment. The graduation is not the story. The Trident is not the point. The point is the decision that was made every single time the break came again, and staying broken would have been the easier, the more logical, the more defensible choice. The decision to refuse. That decision is available to you right now. not in some future version of your life when the circumstances are better and the timing is right and you feel ready enough to try again. In this moment, with whatever you are carrying, with however many times you have broken before. The refusal does not require that the breaking stop. The breaking is going to keep happening. That is the structure of a life lived at the level you are capable of. Things are going to go wrong. Walls are going to appear. The ground is going to fall out from under you in moments you did not see coming. The question has never been whether you break. The question has always been what you decide in the moment after. And the people who build something real, who build the kind of inner strength that holds when everything external is shaking, who become the kind of person who does not need favorable conditions to keep moving, they are not people who were spared the breaking. They are people who refused every single time to stay there. You have broken before, more than once probably, in ways that still have weight, in places that still affect how you move through the world, in moments that changed what you believed was possible for yourself and that you have been building around ever since. You do not have to keep building around them. The refusal is available right now, not as a feeling, not as a surge of motivation that will carry you through the hard parts, as a decision. The same kind of decision that David Goggins made on an ordinary night in front of a television, cold, clear, final, and completely independent of how he felt in that moment. The broken version ends here. Not because everything is about to get easier. It is not. Not because the path forward is clear or guaranteed or free from the kind of pain that breaks people. Because you have decided that breaking is something you go through, not something you stay in. Get up, refuse, and go become the man, the woman, the person that the breaking was always trying to build.